Hello, thank you for volunteering at Leonard Springs Nature Day. I'm going to be discussing the Creek Station breakdown. For Creek Station, there are two parts. One part is discussing the chemistry side of water, and the other is looking at macroinvertebrates that are found in the creek here at Leonard Springs. For each Creek Station, there will be two volunteer coordinators. You guys will decide the day of who's going to be facilitating what section, but regardless, there will be two of you. When you arrive on site at Leonard Springs, you are going to check in at the front gate. Then you are going to drive your car to the back area where the lunch will be held, and there's bathrooms on site. After parking your car, you are going to walk over and look for the materials for your station. Creek Station has a bin, has a net, as well as a sign for your Creek Station. You are going to collect all those materials, which are located at the top of the staircase off the road, and you're going to carry them down to your location. Again, there are two parts, so each section will be kind of near each other, but one's going to deal with macroinvertebrates and one's going to deal with chemistry. Another thing to note, when your students first arrive at your station, it's best that you go ahead and you split them off yourself right away. As I keep mentioning, there are two parts to Creek Station, so half of the group is going to start at the one station, part of the station, while the other half starts at the other part of the station. So again, divide your group as evenly as you can at the beginning of the station so that they both get to experience the chemistry and the macroinvertebrate parts. Before students even arrive at your station, it's important for Creek facilitators to gather some materials. That includes a water sample you are going to gather in this bucket, and you're going to use it to measure temperature later, as well as discuss dissolved oxygen and pH levels, and as well as collecting the actual macroinvertebrates, the different critters found in the creek. You're going to collect and you're going to separate them out. Looks like I already have one in here. You're going to separate them out in these small containers that we've provided, as well have one showcase bucket where you can keep a lot of them unseparated in for the kids to get an up-close look at them. So my advice to you is always keep your creek net downstream from what you were trying to catch, and that includes when you go to lift up rocks. That's your best place to catch a lot of those really small scuds and things like that. So you're going to lift up rocks, have your net downstream so you can catch all the different critters and particles inside of it. If you ever have any issues catching critters, you just let us know and there will be plenty of people to help you. There has never been an issue when we've never caught any though, I can tell you that right now. Using a handy plastic spoon actually allows you to be able to pull out some of the macroinvertebrates and separate them into the different dishes. We do have some observation dishes that include, they have magnifying glasses on the top and the side. So what you can do is lift this top off here, fill it with a little bit of water, and actually put your macroorganism inside, cover it, and then students are able to get an up-close look at it using these magnifying glasses. So again, after in the first creek section, we're talking about the macroinvertebrates. After you collect your organisms and you're going to separate them out into different containers, what you're also going to do is hand out these facilitator guides. So we have a bunch of handouts inside your creek bin. They're for each section. For the macroinvertebrates, we have some here that break down the different organisms and as well as their tolerance level to pollution. Different organisms found in creeks tell you different things about how healthy that creek might be. So that's what you're discussing here by talking about those macroinvertebrates. In addition to that, as in all creek stations, you have your creek schedule as well as your facilitator guide. So if you have any other questions about the materials you should be covering, you can reference your facilitator guide. That includes both creek sections, which cover the macro and the chemistry side. The chemistry side is going to be talking about, as I mentioned, different readings that water can tell you. So with your sample of water, you're also going to have two thermometers. One thermometer you will hang on a tree and it will give you the atmospheric temperature that we find outside right now in the air, while the other one you are going to place inside of your water sample to get a water temperature reading. You're going to have the kids give the readings for you, and that helps them discuss the differences between Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature readings, as well as what kind of scientists and why use this kind of data and what they use it for. Another thing you're going to cover at the chemistry part of Creek Station is dissolved oxygen. This is the visual representation you are going to discuss with the students. We provide different dissolved oxygen containers that you actually go and break inside of a sample. So what you're going to do is fill this little container with some of your sampled water from the creek, and you take one of these out of the box and you actually break it inside of the water, just the tip, and it changes colors. After it changes colors, you're going to ask that your students tell you what level the dissolved oxygen is based on the color. Furthermore, at the chemistry side of it, you are going to discuss pH levels. Again, there are some handy handouts that we provide for you to discuss different pH levels and what they mean, as well as some pH strips that you will actually take one out and have a participant dip a strip into the water, and it's going to change color, and that color correlates with different pH levels. So again, it's all about just collecting the data from the water sample. The data is all being recorded this whole time on our handy journals. Each bin will come with the Creek journal guide in it. So what it does is it tells you what the students are actually going to be filling out as they go along with you. So sometimes it's helpful to reference what they expect to be filling out along the way so you know that everyone's walking away with a completed journal. As I mentioned, there's two sides, so you have one side for chemistry and the one side for the macroinvertebrates. All those variables we talked about in the chemistry section, we had the pH, the oxygen, and the temperature. For example, you could mention something like that higher temperatures usually means lower oxygen. So actually having trees planted around creek, creating shade, lowers the temperature and creates more oxygen in the water. And guess what? Plants and animals still need oxygen even if they live in water. So you can see a little bit of that representation of the relationship shown here on this handout, where as temperature goes up, oxygen goes down. And as you can see right here in this graph, all those variables tie in and can tell us about the health of a creek. And this is kind of why we're talking about it today. We're trying to decide, is the creek at Leonard Springs healthy or not? And you can look at that by tying in different variables, like I said, temperature, dissolved oxygen, and pH levels. After your station is complete, it's always fun to have the kids get really up close to some of the critters, get a better idea. But at the end of it, it's always about making sure their journals are complete and that you have all of your materials back where they belong. So once your students leave, it's always good to make sure that you have all the same materials that you started with. That includes, at the end of the day, at your final group, you're going to collect all your materials, try to dry off your materials as best as possible using the towels provided in the bin, and then you're going to bring all the materials back up to the road where you first found them.